It will be done at the discretion of the commissioners.
Thank you very much. Are there any additions or corrections for the May 30th Commissioner meeting minutes? Hearing none, the minutes will stand approved as presented. We did have several executive sessions, June the 5th, dealing with contract negotiations, litigation, and personnel. June the 10th, we had 2 separate meetings, both personnel. June the 12th, personnel, contract negotiations, and litigation. Any public comment on agenda items? Now, we have a number of people signed up. They didn't say agenda items, but I'm looking at the topics, and I think they're here for the public hearing that will be given with Pam. So if you are, we're going to allow you to speak before the presentation from Pam Seaman. If you're here for a different purpose and it's not an agenda item, we'll have you speak at the end. And right out of the gate, I'm struggling with a first name. Is it Garish? The last name is Idrisoua. Ganesh. One Well Healthcare. Are you here to talk about Pam Seaman's presentation? The community block grant? No. Okay. We'll put that at the end. Sheila Snyder, same thing at the end. Pauline Klopp. No comment. Not a problem. Get this figured out now. Is it Stephen Young? The block grant. So in a minute, I'll have you speak. And Michelle Jones? No comment? Okay. So we will begin with Stephen Young.
Oh, I have no comment.
Oh, no comment. Okay. Hey, that's not a problem. Look, you got your couple minutes or seconds of fame in the meeting. Yes. Okay, you were signing up that people knew you were here. That's not a problem. Maybe we'll try to be more clear, but don't worry about it. Glad to recognize you in the process, and we're very glad to have you here for our meeting. With that said, in accordance with the legal notice published on May the 2nd in the Reading Eagle, a public hearing will be held for approval of the Human Services Block Grant for fiscal year 2024-2025 for mental health and developmental disabilities. Pamela Seaman, Berks County Mental Health Developmental Disabilities Program Administrator, will present information concerning the implementation of the Human Services Block Grant and request adoption of the following resolution. I'll read that while she steps to the microphone. And that resolution is adopt a resolution approving the Human Service Block Grant for fiscal year 2024-2025 for the Mental Health Developmental Disabilities Program and further authorizing execution of Appendix A, fiscal year 24-25 County Human Services Plan Assurance of Compliance Form. Pam.
Thank you. Good morning, and thanks for allowing us some time at your Commissioners Board meeting for this public hearing. Just a reminder, the Human Services Block Grant is several different allocations that come together to be the Human Services Block Grant. That is mental health community-based funding, behavioral health services initiative, intellectual disabilities community-based services, Act 158 of 1980, drug and alcohol services, homeless assistance program funding, and human services development funding. And we've been a block grant county, which we applied to be since 2012. Part of the reason that we did that was, or the county, speaking on your behalf, did that was having a block grant, even though we have specific allocations in each program area, allows us a little flexibility so that if in one particular year there may be a need more so in another area, we can go back to the state and ask permission if needed to do so to move funding between different allocation areas. So again, that's the block grant. Just highlighting a couple of things from the current fiscal year, and I should point out that these block grant plans that we work on are fiscal year. So our fiscal year starts July 1st and runs through June 30th. So we are actually right at the point where we're closing up for the current fiscal year. Again, a couple of things that we are proud and glad that we were able to stand up or continue to work on development this year were crisis residential services, and that's through Holcomb. We did get some grant funding actually 2 years ago to get that program started up, and that is now up and running. Another service that we actually were happy to partner with Kids Peace on was a walk-in assessment center, which we had been hearing from schools, from emergency rooms, that a lot of families who were having kids that were struggling and in crisis were going to the emergency room, getting frustrated. So Kids Peace actually had come to us and talked to us about starting this walk-in assessment center at their Temple location, which basically allows people to go to their facility, get an assessment, determine what the service needs are, and Kids Peace actually will help to try to coordinate that, whether that's inpatient service, partial hospitalization, outpatient services, or some other service. And that basically operates Monday through Friday, I believe from 8 to 3:30. And we actually have a lot of good numbers and good information about the people that are actually accessing and using that service. The other thing that we have been able to advance this year is Lost Team, and that really came out of our Suicide Prevention Task Force. The Lost Team, which we partner with the Greater Reading Mental Health Association, responds to situations for families, friends, individuals that have been impacted by a suicide. And it's basically to support individuals who are left behind with that situation. So again, still very early on, trying to figure out how to make the most of that team and basically what they do and who they send out to the different places where families that are requesting that service is a family member or a friend who's actually been a survivor of suicide, who's walked in that situation and really can relate to that person. But they're a person who has been far enough in terms of their recovery from that situation to be able to support the individual. So that's relatively new. LTSR, that's long-term structured residence. One of the things that we've been identifying is a need for that level of care, which is in between inpatient psychiatric acute care and other levels of care in the community, but it requires startup funding. So we did actually submit a request, have been saying to the state for the last couple of years, this is something that we could use some resources for. So we are actually happy that we did find out recently that we've been granted some funding to get that program up and running. So hopefully look forward to reporting next year about the start of that service. And then the other thing that we've started this year, and I feel really proud of, is the crisis intervention team, which is, if people have ever heard of the Memphis model, it's a partnership with first responders, law enforcement in particular, who are coming upon situations with individuals that have mental illness or other behavioral health, substance use issues, and really making sure that we're giving them the tools to be able to respond to those situations. So the CIT is training, but it's also developing a relationship with those responders and trying to identify barriers that they're experiencing that we can help them to overcome. You know, when you run into these situations, what are you faced with? What resources do you need? How can we help you work through this? So in the past year, actually, through our collaboration with Connections Works, we did get some grant funding from the state, and we were actually able to provide 2 CIT trainings for police officers and other first responders. So it's our goal to be able to do that at least twice a year. It's a pretty intensive training, about 40 hours. So it's a huge commitment for police departments to commit to, but everything that we're hearing in terms of the information that we've collected after those trainings is that they're well worth the time, and their officers are feeling like they're walking away with information and skills. Part of that training is actually taking them out and showing them some of the programs that we have, because you know they hear about things but they have no idea. And the other thing is we partner with the National Alliance of Mental Illness, NAMI, our local chapter, to also present as part of that training process the perspective of family or a person who's been in that situation, what it's like to be on the other side when you're having police intervene, and the stress and all of that comes with it, and how we can again try to work together to try to make those experiences less traumatic, and also help people get to where they need in terms of treatment rather than taking them into custody and jail time. So again, those are just a couple highlights from 2023. Next slide. So again, I spoke about this a little bit in the beginning. Part of the benefit of the Human Services Block Grant is we have a consolidated planning process, and we bring all those different facets together in those areas that we get funding allocations for to look at what are our service needs in the community. And that's how we actually put together the plan that gets submitted to the state. So different members of the leadership team that are involved in this planning process come from our SCA, Kathy Knoll, from the Council on Chemical Abuse is here, our developmental disability community, the mental health community, our health choices program, and our homeless assistance program. Next slide. So we are, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're coming to the end of this fiscal year, 23-24. We are expecting that there will be some funding that may be left over, and that's been the case for the last couple of years. And what the state allows us to do with those funds is they allow us to develop what they call that money for one-time only startup or different kinds of tangible things that might be needed. And so we need to submit a plan to the state. And once we get approval of that plan, then we roll that out. It's not really to provide anything that would be a service that would be ongoing, because you never know year to year if you're going to actually have that money available. Next slide. So different allocation projections. Again, on the mental health and the developmental disability side, just have a couple data points there. Funding, different data sources. And the block grant funding are pieces of the bigger picture of our overall budgets. So these are basically our base funds. And on the mental health side, that you can see it's about $9.5 million. And on the developmental disability side, about $3 million. And also you can see the number of individuals that were actually served in the prior fiscal year, 22-23, just because we haven't completed out the 23-24 year. And I'm not going to go through all the different funds, all the different services that are supported by the funds. Some of those are up there on that slide. Next slide. Human Service Development Fund, again, covers different service areas that are really kind of service gaps. You can see it's not a huge amount of money, but those few dollars actually support lots of different services, and those are listed below. Different case management services, some drug and alcohol treatment, home delivered meals, other prevention activities, which typically we're not using our dollars for. Next slide. Our homeless assistance program, or the HAP allocation, again, not tons of money, but about $500,000, and it goes to lots of different community provider agencies to support homeless assistance programs, bridge housing, rental assistance, case management. And previously, we worked with the Homeless Coalition, who oversaw those funds and worked with the providers to actually develop contracts, and we are making a change as of July the 1st, and we are actually working with Berks Redevelopment Authority. So brand new process for us that we've already started for this coming year. Next slide. All right, I'm going to ask Kathy Knoll from the Council on Chemical Abuse if she would speak to the BHSI.
Thank you, Pam. Good morning, commissioners. Good morning, everyone. You can see that the block grant provides a great deal of funding for drug and alcohol services. The one thing that I do want to point out on this slide is that I made a mistake when we were putting this PowerPoint together. The number of clients served is not 77,000. That's actually the amount of money we use for case management services. The actual number of clients served was 3,080, with 1,000 people receiving prevention services and over 2,000 people receiving drug and alcohol treatment and recovery support services. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the drug and alcohol specific portion of the block grant, or you can reach out to me later if you think of something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next slide. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, one of the things that the block grant allows is some flexibility. Even though we get very specific allocations, we can look each year as we're going along and see what our potential spending is, where we're projecting that will actually end up. And so this year we have actually been following that, and we did make a decision to reallocate some funding from mental health to the Council on Chemical Abuse for some substance use services. I will say, again, definitely this year, one of the things that happened that lends to having money that we can reallocate is we did actually find out further along into the fiscal year last year that the state was giving us $500,000 for mental health services. Unfortunately, when we find information out like that, we are always planning, always trying to figure out different services that we could utilize, but starting up a program, getting all that together, finding a provider, especially with the staffing challenges, we couldn't make that happen prior to June 30th. So we do know how to spend that money next year, but we'll still partner and work with our other different allocation areas, again, as we go throughout the year to see if there's funding that we can move around. We also moved a little bit from mental health to human service development fund. Next slide. Again, I mentioned retained earnings, and those are funds that are left over at the end of the year, and it's capped at a certain percentage of our overall block grant that we're allowed to keep. So some of the things that we did with that the retained earnings plans last year were some rental and utility assistance for individuals that we support. I mentioned the loss team. We did some expenses related to them. We, on the DD side, we supported some events, some social and recreational events, which sometimes I feel like those dollars, even though they're really small dollars, go the furthest way in terms of supporting families and individuals. And then we have been for the last couple of years using these retained earnings to support our suicide prevention activities. Next slide. Again, this just talks about some additional places that we use retained earnings. I was talking about one-time only funding. So one of the things in particular, our crisis program, which is our walk-in crisis center where they do telephone and also they do the crisis residential, is they were frequently losing their power. And that's important when you're running a crisis hotline number that you don't lose your power or your telephone. So backup generator and also some AED equipment. We also, I'd point out with the schools, we fund student assistance program, and one of the things that we were talking about, and I'm sure is on everyone's mind, is, since COVID, we've definitely known how kids have been impacted, and rather than wait to the point where a kid might need treatment, what are some of the activities that we can do that are preventative? So one of the things that we've been doing is mindfulness training and supporting that through the student assistance program. Case Management Academy was supporting paid internships for social work students to try to get them to actually stay in our field and hopefully become blended case managers. So we had one that we paid for some activities for this past year. Next slide. So again, some of the things that we'll point out in our plan when we submit this to the state in terms of our strengths is we're really fortunate that we do have a very robust provider network. We do work really closely with our emergency rooms to try to figure out diversionary options in terms of avoiding people going to the emergency room and heading them in different directions in the first place, or once they do wind up there, or how can we help those emergency rooms connect people to the services that they need so that they're not in our emergency rooms. We also started this year funding services that previously were funded only by our Medicaid system, but really were gaps for people who maybe only had Medicare or commercial insurance. And those services are peer and mobile psych rehab. In terms of overall system needs, I think one of the biggest things that we're all really still struggling with is workforce development issues. We can pull a service up, get that running, but you have to have the staff to actually deliver the service. And on all sides of the equation, that's definitely an issue. So we'll keep working at that. The IDD system is beginning a huge transformation, and one of the things that they're looking at is pay rates for our direct service providers. So another area that we're going to be paying a lot of attention to, and trying to make that a lot more robust so that people want to stay and want to work with our individuals. And again, the other issue is, again, and this is an IDD issue, is that really since COVID, a lot of the daytime activities that we used to have available just really haven't bounced back. So a lot of our individuals who graduate from high school and now are home all day, finding a day program or finding something for them to do during the day is really challenging, especially for families who are still trying to work and support their households. So I think that some of that goes back to the workforce development issues. Next slide. Forward considerations and why we're all here is, again, we're always looking for community input from our providers, from our other stakeholders about what are the program areas, the gaps that we have in service. And one of the things, I know in particular that we, especially on the mental health side, have been lacking is funding for what we call CRR. And those are equate to mental health group homes that really, we have very few programs that offer availability, and that's one of the areas that we're hopefully focusing on expanding this year. And then the other area that we've been prioritizing and working really closely with our criminal justice partners is really our forensic diversion activities. And so we've already identified another position to be a forensic diversion person in the community to respond to those situations. Workforce development, as I already mentioned, the other issue for us, again, overall, and it's not just our mental health program, but our homeless assistance program and our HSDF program have really been flatlined, budget funded for many years. So really trying to get the resources. And if you follow news, I'm sure everybody's seeing mental health is one of the areas that we could always use additional funding. And then the status of the retained earning plan. When we submit our block grant plan, excuse me, after we have the close of our income and expenditure report, that's when we'll be putting that plan together for any funding that we can identify for one-time only type of purchases. And then next slide. So thank you for your time and attention. I guess I would open it up if you have any questions, or if anybody has any questions that I can answer or Kathy can answer.
Questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'll ask my standard question that I tend to ask all our agencies that deal with state government and getting state funding. What impact, if any, will protracted state budget have? I'm getting chatter that probably won't have a budget passed by the end of June. If it trickles into July, it's not that much of an issue. My concern is if it drags on further into the summer and into the fall, if any impact. I'm sure it does. I would just get your feedback on that.
Yeah, so I think different years it's been handled different ways, and sometimes we'll be told that no. And for example, if we have money that we didn't spend for the prior year that's actually sitting here that we haven't returned, could we use that money while we're waiting for the impasse? And so sometimes we get a yes, sometimes we get a no. But if the answer is no, the problem is we have providers who are delivering service and not getting paid. So that is a huge, huge issue. If I'm a provider, how long can I go living off my line of credit before I have to say, what, I can't do that. So yeah, that's definitely a worry for us every year, because we don't want to be in a situation where we can't pay our providers and they tell us, we're not going to be able to deliver service.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And that is not an unrealistic question to ask. My time here, we've had at least 2, maybe 3 pretty serious delays in the budget process, and it really causes strain especially in areas that are more crisis oriented like MHDD.
Well, and you've heard me also, besides even the budget being passed, one of the frustrations is, our fiscal year starts July the 1st, and we don't ever really get our allocations until sometimes October or later. So we're heading into contracts with providers where we can't even really commit to them in terms of funding. We tend to budget forward thinking that we're going off of the same allocation that we have the provider year, the previous year. But as you can imagine, for providers, that's a terrible place to be also, to go into a contract year and not really have a true understanding of what the funds are that are going to be available in your contract. So we have contracts, but then we have to wait to go back and amend those when we actually have the allocation letters. And that's one of the problems. We need this money, but when you don't know what you have, how can you even plan a system when you're not really sure where you're going to end up or wind up? You're hoping that you're going to get the same allocation that you had the prior year. But as we know, 10, 12 years ago, there was a year where our allocation was cut. And so we are always cautious to the point where, you don't want to overspend yourself. Again, not even really knowing what money you're going into the year with. But at the same time, you have program service needs. So it's like, how can you say like you have money left at the end of the year? Well, these are exactly the reasons why, because we go into the fiscal year so cautious, not really having the information that we need to manage the system.
Which in turn doesn't allow you to provide the services that you would like to provide because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and quite honestly, with the budget being flatlined for the last couple of years, we were just trying to figure out how to maintain what we had. Everybody's costs are going up. When the funding doesn't go up, but your costs for delivering the service, including, what I've been talking about in terms of workforce, other areas of business, other industries, we're competing with them. They're offering way higher salaries. So providers are trying to make those adjustments, which means their costs are going up and they're trying to get those funds from us. So, if we can't commit them, then we're in situations, to your point, where not only are we struggling to continue to deliver what we have, but to provide and expand and deliver new services is a real challenge.
That's why, and this is an issue statewide, and it's one of the priorities of the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania is pushing for the increase in mental health funding. We've also had conversations about the timing of the money and how that impacts, and they are aware of that as well. And that's something we'll continue to push as an association and as us as commissioners as well, understanding the importance of mental health and the job that you do. So, thank you.
Appreciate your work, Pam, Michelle, and the advisory board. This is a very important area. I think you can make a legitimate argument that if you look at counties across the United States, probably the number one issue impacting counties is mental health. You look at it in our jail, children and youth services, as it relates to the arena of addiction. Some cases, it's the underlying issue and the addiction is self-medication. Other cases, addiction may be the underlying issue and temporary or permanent mental health issues result. Area Agency on Aging, our Veterans Affairs, just a wide area. And then when you look at our municipalities in our city, policing, EMS, major issue. It just touches so many different areas. And it is frustrating. It was 2012 when there was a 10% cut in the human services line item, including mental health. And it's been flat ever since. That's 12 years ago. That's an enormous amount of money. And to a certain degree, I understand budget constraints, but on the other hand, we've had conversations with our legislators, with multiple governors, and everyone seems to agree mental health is the issue. It's a huge issue. And it reminds me of the saying, everyone wants to go to heaven, no one wants to die. Everyone seems to say, yes, we need to address mental health, but there's no money. And follow the money. What's really important in your home budget, follow the money. What's really important in a business budget, follow the money. What's really important in the state government budget, follow the money. And apparently, over recent years, it's not been mental health. I think there's a proposal in the governor's budget of about $20 million for mental health. The County Commissioners Association is looking for over 200 million, and that doesn't bring us anywhere close to where we would be if we had the restoration of the 10% and some reasonable cost of living. So this is an enormous issue, and if anybody thinks, well, it just affects this area, it doesn't affect me, it pretty much touches almost every aspect of county government and has a direct impact on county government budgets. One last thing on budgeting, if you don't believe that, if you look at our current county property tax, about $165 million, $100 million of that is public safety, courts, which is the jail. And I will tell you, mental health is a major impact. We just had our jail board meeting yesterday. 62% of the current inmate population are category C or D in the mental health roster. 62%. It's an enormous number. And over, I guess, about 12 or 13% are in the seriously mentally ill category, and jail is not the place to be treating people with these types of issues. So with that understanding, I would accept a motion to adopt the resolution noted on our agenda.
We'll make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the Human Services Block Grant for fiscal year 24-25 for the Mental Health Developmental Disabilities Program, and further authorizing execution of Appendix A, Fiscal Aid 24-25 County Human Services Plan Assurance of Compliance Form.
And I will second that motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Again, thank you, Pam. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you to your support staff and also to our Mental Health Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board. We appreciate all of your work.
Thank you. And just one other comment, we have a second public hearing, and that'll be June 27th at 8:30, and that's at McGlynn Center at Alvernia.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving in to our agenda. Item 1, authorizing under that budget department, adopt a resolution authorizing 2024 budget transfers in the amount of $1,016,554 and 2024 appropriations in the amount of $1,938,857 per listing dated June the 13th of 2024. A couple items under purchasing, adopt a resolution authorizing recommendation to award and further authorizing the Director of Contracts and Procurement to execute as a result of an invitation to bid a contract for the Berks County Ag Center culvert replacement project. That goes to J. Phillips Excavating and Hauling in Lenhartsville. Total bid amount not to exceed $26,045.56. Item B, adopt a resolution authorizing a recommendation to award and further authorizing the Director of Contracts and Procurement to execute as a result of an invitation to bid a contract for the Works Covered Bridge Stair Repair Project. And that goes to Desco Design and Construction, Inc. out of Fleetwood, Pennsylvania. That is a total not to exceed amount of $33,884.90. Several items listed under Human Resources. Item 1, authorize the promotion of Joshua Minnick from CAD Operational Analyst to Technical Service Manager, Department of Emergency Services. Item 2, authorize the appointment of Brian Collins to Assistant Public Defender 4 in the Public Defender's Office. Item 3, authorize the appointment of Daniel Johnson to Assistant Public Defender 1 in the Public Defender's Office. We have 3 items under the Commissioners. Item A, adopt a resolution ratifying, confirming, and approving the chair to execute an updated Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency grant application for a sub-grant for the National Forensic Science Improvement Act, applying for additional grant funding for the Combating Opioids Project within the District Attorney's Office for the period of July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Item B, adopt a resolution authorizing amending Resolution 246-2023 to correct the parties to the agreement. The previous resolution incorrectly identified the agreement as being between the County of Berks and the Berks County Industrial Development Authority. The correct parties to the agreement are the County of Berks and the Redevelopment Authority of Berks County. All terms of agreement remain unchanged. Item C, adopt a resolution authorizing Mitchell R. Darcourt, Treasurer, to execute the Sterling Capital Client Consent Letter consenting to the assignment of the county's current investment advisory agreement with Sterling Capital Management, LLC. Item 2, a motion to authorize the execution of contract agreements and amendments as set forth in the contract agenda listing dated June 10th, 2024. There are a total of 19 contracts. There are 5 with the Area Agency on Aging, 1 with the Assessment Office, 2 with the Berksheim, 2 with Career Link, 2 with Children and Youth Services, 1 jointly with Children and Youth Services and Juvenile Probation, 1 with the Commissioners, 2 with Facilities and Operations, 2 with Information Systems, and 1 with Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities. Item 3, a motion to authorize execution of the payments and electronic transfers for the week ending June 11th, 2024. Item 4, a motion to authorize execution of employee payroll disbursements dated June 18th of 2024.
Motion to approve the agenda is presented.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. We'll move now to reports of our treasurer and controller. We'll begin with our county treasurer, Mitch Darcourt.
Thank you, Mr. Leinbach. Today, we have an opening balance of $290,826,528.52. We have a balance to clear of $4,958,386.93, leaving us with a balance of $285,863,141.59. That is all, Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mitch. We'll move now to our county controller, Joe Rutterow, with the controller's report. Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report will be for the last 2 weeks. So I'll start with last week's. For the week ending 6/6/2024, there was a total accounts payable of $10,724,785.13. There was a employee payroll of $5,076,518.45 for a total cash disbursement of $15,801,303.58. For the week ending 6/13, we have a total accounts payable of $5,353,788.18. We have an employee payroll of $1,217.63 for total cash disbursement of $5,354,995.81. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. We'll move now to report of our Chief Operations Officer, Kevin.
Thank you, Commissioner Leinbach. Under our department, we have a report from Larry Medaglia regarding the shelter care program that's being put together by the county over the last year and a half, and the concerns regarding Schuylkill Valley School District. And Larry's joining us virtually.
Larry, welcome.
Good morning and thank you. First of all, I want to just outline a few comments. It may take a little bit, but this has been a lengthy process, and I think it is worth the time and energy that we're going to use this morning in the meeting. The need for shelter beds in Berks County and around the Commonwealth has been well documented in the media, so I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on that. But kids in need of shelter are generally classified as complex cases, and those kids are in the custody and care of Children and Youth Services. Since we have this shortage of available beds, in many cases, we've had to take some extraordinary measures to house and care for some of these kids safely. In the most extreme cases we've discussed before, the cost runs at $5,250 per day. That's just unsustainable, both as an expense to the county, and it's not the best solution for the kids who are in need of stability, access to education, and medical and mental health services. So the county began discussing this comprehensively. I mean, the county was aware of it prior to January, but when Kevin and I assumed our new positions as the COO team, this really got going in earnest in January of 2023, when Commissioner Rivera brought together a team of professionals from the county to start looking at how we might be able to solve this problem. By mid-February of 2023, representatives of the Schuylkill Valley School District, as well as the IU, were invited to discuss our developing concepts of a shelter care facility and what the impact would be, both from an educational and a financial standpoint. Part of that discussion was upon the availability of state funding, because we said from the get-go, while we want to do it and recognize the need, unless there is state funding available to help defray this cost, the cost is going to be too much to bear for the county. So we worked with Representative Barry Joswiak, and Barry was able to secure slightly over $6 million from the state budget for programming to begin in mid-2024. So that's where we find ourselves today. And this funding covers roughly 80% of the cost to operate, meaning the county must find and supply the remaining 20%. So the cost there is estimated somewhere to be in the neighborhood of $1.2 million. We've had substantial and regular communication with the administration at Schuylkill Valley School District, and they were made aware much earlier this year, once the state funding was made, the determination was made that it was going to be made available to us as the county. And it was very important that we reached out to them so that they could begin to build their budget with the additional costs in mind. The Schuylkill Valley School District administration, I have to say, has been a very good partner with the county throughout this process. We've had regular meetings, discussions, virtual meetings, emails, phone calls. So there's been a great deal of back and forth with the team over at Schuylkill Valley in terms of the administration, and they have been great partners. The commissioners held a budget ops meeting early this spring, and the purpose of that was to publicly discuss the proposal that was going to be made to the board to consider opening a shelter. When that budget ops meeting was held, Schuylkill Valley School District was invited to attend, both the administration and members of the school board, so that they could come and participate, not just as public comment, but as active participants without any restriction on time, so that they could tell us their concerns. And they did participate, and they did join us for that meeting. And I want to turn your attention to a couple of things a little more technical. Because the concern is what the cost is going to be for Schuylkill Valley. And we're not unsympathetic to that. I want to just point that out. The Board of Commissioners has been clear that they're very much aware of what the financial impact is going to be. But sections 1306 and 1309 of Title 24, Title 24 is the public school code. Those provide for how education of children is to occur for those kids when they're in a shelter. Section 1306 states it is the responsibility of the host school district, which would be Schuylkill Valley, where the facility is located, and that host school district is responsible to provide educational services for the children in the facility. And I'll talk about best interest determinations because that's part of all of that. Further, in section 1309, and I'm reading and I apologize, but I want to read it as it appears in the code. Section 1309 states specifically, the host school district, again, Schuylkill Valley, may charge their established tuition rate to the home school district of the child in placement, along with other costs incurred for educational services, including special ed and transportation. And these agreements to cover the costs are made directly between the school districts. So what this means specifically is that Schuylkill Valley School District has the ability to recover a significant portion of the costs that they incur from the other school districts from which those children are placed. Now, the best interest determination, that's referred to as a bid. That takes place within days of the child being placed in any shelter or any facility, and that bid is what determines the educational plan, and that education plan that is best for the child in order to meet the needs of that child. Just some final observations. This is not unique to our shelter or to Schuylkill Valley School District. We have some examples right here in the county of where this dynamic plays out every day and every year. Conrad Weiser School District contends with these same issues as they have the Bethany Children's Home hosted in their district. The same can be said for Reading School District with the Children's Home of Reading, as well as Twin Valley School District, which hosts the Abraxas Academy in their district. Specific to costs and statements made by the members of the Schuylkill Valley School Board, the county has been fully transparent in our communication with them. Communication has been early and often. So I really want to stress that we have made every effort possible to be open with them, to be transparent with them about what the costs were going to be, what the services needed would be. And I believe that we have gone above and beyond to make sure that is clear, and that this wasn't just something that came out of the blue when it was announced. They've had more than a year to prepare for this. Individual commissioners, I'm sure, may speak to this issue after I've wrapped up my remarks, but in terms of those costs, until we have a look at what the actual incurred costs are, it's going to be difficult for the county to settle on a number, particularly until we see what those numbers are. Beyond that, the county has a responsibility not just to the taxpayers of Schuylkill Valley, but to the taxpayers of the entire county when we determine a tax rate, when we allocate funds, and then, of course, when we spend them. Finally, I think we are on track to do our soft opening of the facility on July the 15th. We will start with Berks County children only, and the idea is that over the course of a 2.5 week period, we'll be able to work out the bugs, if you will, make sure that our staff who is in place and ready to go gets comfortable in the routine and gets used to working with one another in the 3 shifts. This is a 24/7 operation, and a lot of these folks are going to be new to their teams. So we wanted to do it in that way with that 2-week opening. The next step would be to accept kids beginning August 1st from outside of the county, assuming that we have the bed space available to do so. Our goal has been, and we've stated this very often, our sweet spot for operation is 20 children. That's what we built our staffing plan on, and 20 is the number. Even though we have a license for 50 kids, The reasoning behind that came from the state. We told them from the very beginning, our intent was to focus on a number right around 20. And I think it's important to know that the purpose here is to provide a safe, stable place to live for these kids where their educational, their medical, and their mental health needs can be met. And to close it up, I want to thank the Board of Commissioners for your commitment to protect and care for these extremely vulnerable kids in our community. They are in desperate need. You hear about it every day. And I think it was, frankly, it was bold leadership, and it took courage to take on a new program knowing full well what the cost and the impact was going to be. But when you weigh that against the needs of these kids, we had to do something. And I applaud the commissioners for doing so. I also want to thank the administration at Schuylkill Valley School District. They have been a terrific partner, as I said before, and I want to acknowledge their efforts. I want to shout out Barry Joswiak, because Barry has been a tremendous advocate for kids in need. We started this conversation with Barry well over a year ago. He worked very hard with his colleagues on both sides of the aisle to get this money into the budget so that we could open this shelter and begin to serve these kids in need. And lastly, I want to thank, I tend to be the public spokesperson on this issue, but there is an enormous team of professionals inside county government that have worked extremely hard to help put together a program that is going to be able to serve these kids that are vulnerable and candidly have nowhere else to turn. So I want to thank each one of them. And that concludes my remarks. Thank you for your indulgence. It's probably more than you wanted to hear, but you know I'm a recovering politician and it's sometimes hard to keep it quiet. And I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry. The commissioners are going to make some comments now. I have to tell you that I'm very disappointed in the comments and ultimate suggestion of some in the Schuylkill Valley School District, especially around two issues. One, the communication. We have gone out of our way, and you in particular, for open lines of communication and transparency. I compliment you and Kevin Barnhart, and that's important. I mean, we started conversations long before there was any discussion at the public level, as you noted, back in February of 2023. The second thing I think that is important to point out, and you noted, is from a cost standpoint, we've been talking about the cost issues, and they know that they have the ability to charge the school district, the home school district of any of these children. Now, if the home school district ends up being Schuylkill Valley School District, well, this student is already in their budget, so it's not a new charge. I really didn't see anything around that issue. What I saw was some finger pointing at the county and a complete failure to point out that they have the ability to secure funding. And you read it verbatim. It's not just set a fee. It's costs plus other potential charges. And I certainly hope that they plan on doing that, because that is what the law sets forth relative to them being compensated for the work that they're doing. You also point out appropriately what makes it a little bit difficult to know exactly what the education model looks like is the best interest determination. That hearing ultimately decides whether the child secures in-facility education, potentially education back in their home district, or education at Schuylkill Valley. I also want to add my note of thanks to Representative Barry Joswiak. Those dollars will be extremely helpful. And the potential exists, and I have stated this several times. I don't want Schuylkill Valley to be out of pocket when it comes to costs for this project. But we have to do this together, and our commitment is to start on a very small scale. And all that we've committed to, even at the max right now, is 20. I do have one question for the school district, and that is, if it is determined that there is no cost to the school district, will they make a commitment now to repeal the tax increase that they put forward? Because we're being told the tax increase is entirely due to the youth shelter. So that's my question. Colleagues, any comments?
Yes, thank you very much. And Larry, thank you for the recap of what has happened with this shelter. I also want to say I'm very disappointed with the Schuylkill Valley School Board. Although the finger pointing was not unexpected based on the conversation I had with a school board member, I am disappointed at them. If you're going to share information, the full information needs to be shared. And something Larry, I was going to read out of 1306, but you read out of it, so I'm not going to read over it. But something that I do want to discuss is under 1306, there's a section that says financing non-resident students living in children's institutions. And it says host school districts will finance the provision of the educational program for the students in children's institution through section 1306 of the school code. So it is on Schuylkill Valley to do that, but there is a recourse in there where they can get then that funding back from the other school districts for those kids that are not residents of the school district. Again, that was not mentioned by the school board at any time either. Another thing I want to point out here that I was reminded of as well is that at Berks Park 183, FedEx this year generated $391,741 in annual school district property taxes that did not exist last year. Additionally, when the developer sold it in January, the school district also received an additional approximately $200,000 in transfer taxes. And there's a lot there which is under construction. And once it's done, it is expected it will generate another $250,000 to $325,000 for the 25-26 budget of the school district as well. So these properties alone account for the $600,000 in annual additional property tax revenue that the school district was not receiving prior to the park. And this does not take into consideration the development of other property there, such as the UGI and GT Industries properties. So that's something else that was not mentioned there, this additional revenue that the school district will be receiving because of development that is happening in the county. I also want to take a moment to thank Representative Barry Joswiak for his hard work in understanding the need to be able to serve the kids in our community and for stepping forward and helping us get that funding for that. I'm a resident of Schuylkill Valley School District. My kids went to Schuylkill Valley for 13 years, K through 12, both of them. My daughter just graduated a week ago, not a few weeks ago, a week ago. So I do want to take an opportunity to thank the teachers there for their hard work. My kids love the 13 years that they have there. So I live in Schuylkill Valley School District. I know the issues at Schuylkill Valley School District, and it's not that I want to pawn this off on the Schuylkill Valley School District. We do want to work with them and see what can be done. But it needs we need to have, rather than finger pointing, we need to have continuing conversations around this to make sure that it's a win-win for everyone involved in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate Larry's presentation, explained it very well. And I don't want to rehash everything. My colleagues have given some great points, so I'll just be very general. I do want to speak to the communication issue, and I know I've only been here since January, but I know that that our team has been very open with regards to the process. And I know that the Schuylkill Valley School District has even been here a few times with regards to that issue. So that was a concerning comment that I heard about not having the communication with the county. I think that was wrong. Commissioner Rivera talked about the revenue area that I was going to mention with regards to property, increased property taxes from county projects, county agencies that are working to develop the 183 Berks Park 183 project. We are under, certainly, as Larry explained, under lots of constraints with regards to state law, so we have to follow that. And the one thing I want to mention, I know that the board, School Valley Board mentioned in their comments, at least in the paper, that they needed to have an exact figure, and that's why they raised the exact amount that they say it's going to cost them. But they understand, and I understand. And here I go again talking about the state budget. They have to make a judgment on monies they're going to receive from the state. So they do pass a budget every June, and it's before they know what they're going to be getting from the state. So they have to make some educated projections there, so they could do the same with the county. And my final comment is the County of Berks and the Schuylkill Valley School District are not adversaries. We are not adversaries. We are partners, and we want to be partners with them. I certainly appreciate and understand how difficult it is to run a school district. You have to provide the education that our kids need and do it at a cost that's effective and reasonable to the taxpayers of that district. But in no way, shape, or form is this county, at least in my opinion, an adversary. We want to work with them. We want to provide what's needed from their end, but we also have to be knowledgeable and understanding of the concerns of the county, which is we represent all the citizens of the county. So there's a lot of things that we have to understand and work with, but we would look forward to working with the school district. And as I said, as a partner, not as an adversary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll try that again. Thank you very much, Commissioners Rivera and Commissioner Santoni. We'll move now to Commissioners' comments, and we'll begin with Commissioner Michael Rivera.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Leinbach. Just want to note we do have an election board meeting at 11, but we will start it immediately or a few minutes after we finish with this meeting. So just wanted to make everyone aware of that. A few comments I have is just this past Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we had the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania board meeting here in Berks County. It started Wednesday evening with a dinner at the Fightin' Phil's. On Thursday, we did a tour of Berks County. I tried to select different areas that represented what Berks County is. So we started out at Saucony Creek. Commissioner Leinbach spoke about passenger rail. Then from there, we went on to East Penn Manufacturing. Understanding manufacturing is one of the top industries in Berks County. From there, we went to Cornerview Farms, understanding that agriculture is the #1 industry based on gross revenue in Berks County. Then we moved on to Colebrookdale Railroad, and then after that, the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. So I do want to thank those businesses who opened up their doors to us. While in Boyertown, we also visited Free Cons, and also had the opportunity to go to the Fightin' Phil's and have dinner at the Peanut Bar as well. Something I do want to make clear is this is not paid by the county. This is paid by the association and by sponsors as well that put into this. So this was not paid by the county. This past weekend also had the opportunity to go to the World War II event. Always a great event there. Went on Sunday afternoon and had tons of fun, but I'm sure Commissioner Leinbach will talk about that a little bit more. Also, this past Saturday, I was able to participate of the Berks County Department of Veterans Affairs inaugural March to End Veterans Hunger and Homelessness. And Commissioner Leinbach is going to share some photos of this. And this was held on Saturday morning. And we raised nearly 1,900 items and tons of awareness for the needs of veterans here in Berks County. We started out at the Mount Penn Fire Tower. There I am with Jay and Will from the Veterans Office. And we walked down from the Mount Penn Fire Tower down to City Park here in Reading, where we then handed the donations over to VCOP, which is an organization that does outreach to veterans. was about an hour march or so down there. I took my donations, met up there, had my rucksack, and they took my donations, took my rucksack, and they said, "Oh, we'll fill your rucksack with some clothes, so you can march it down." Everyone was doing that. And when I get my bag, I said, "Man, this is really heavy to have clothes in here." Anyway, got down the mountain, and when we got down to the finishing area, I started pulling the clothes out of my rucksack, and down at the bottom, there's about 10 or 12 cans of food down in the bottom. Came to find out later that Will Tobin from the Veterans Office confessed. He said that he was partially responsible for that. So, but it was a great walk. I did encourage Will and Jay that we do it next year, starting at City Park and walk up to the tower, but they didn't want to do that. They did not think that was a good idea. Today's what, Thursday? On Saturday, we have the Safe Berks annual walk for No More. This will be held, I just want to pull my notes up here. It will be held at 8:20 at the Mills, which is behind Sly Fox Tap House in Wyomissing. And it is basically to say no to domestic violence. No more domestic violence, no more sexual assault. They will be honoring 2 community partners with their Voice of Change Awards. So if you do have the opportunity, please drop by there this Saturday morning. And that will also kick off the West Reading Art on the Avenue. So a lot going on this Saturday morning. If you're there, I will be there. Barbara will be there, and there will be some others there as well. We have our election board meeting today. I already mentioned that. One last item on my end. To all of those of you who are fathers, happy Father's Day. That is this Sunday. So I hope you have a blessed day. Make sure that you're not cooking for your children, but that they are cooking for you. All right. That is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Rivera. Commissioner Santoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few things from my end. I want to thank Commissioner Rivera, President of CCAP, for inviting me to the activities. That was great. It was a great showcase of Berks County, and I think we impressed the other county commissioners who came in for your meetings. So that was a great day, and as I said, a great showcase of our county. I also participated in World War II weekend. We started the week with a parade from the airport to downtown Reading, where we participated in some activities, and there were some reenactors there. JFK was there, General Eisenhower was there, Admiral Halsey, General Patton were just a few of the speakers that got up and spoke about that the momentous day 80 years ago, June 6, 1944 D-Day, which, as many of you know, was the turning point. And I'm sure our historian, Chairman Leinbach, will speak more to that, the turning point of World War II. I attended an event at the Reading Public Library to learn about all the services that they have. It's a great library. I encourage many people, everybody to get down there, especially over the summer. They're going to have a great reading program for the kids, and I attended that activity. I just wanted to report I've been appointed to be a member of the Reading and Berks County, Pennsylvania Americana Region Board. My first meeting will be Tuesday. That's the Visitors Bureau, more commonly known as the Visitors Bureau. So I'll give the county perspective on that, and I'm sure I'll be reporting more as I make my way onto that board. Couple of activities coming up. I just want to mention that June is Pride Month and across this country. There's many activities going on with regards to that. I would encourage people to get on the LGBT Center of Greater Reading website to find out of all the activities. I had Laura Biancone, the interim executive director, on my TV show this week to learn about all the services that they provide and also the activities related to June's Pride Month. Juneteenth is next Wednesday, and there's many activities starting this weekend with a flag raising at City Park, 12 noon. That's on Friday, 14th. That's what's the 14th? Tomorrow, Friday, 14th. Sorry. And many activities throughout the weekend and into next week. You can Google Juneteenth celebration, Reading, Berks County, to get the information with regards to that. Since I live close by to the West Reading area, I always like to tout activities over there. Art on the Avenue is on Saturday, June the 15th. If you don't like crowds, you might not want to go there because it's going to be very busy. But it's a great activity, and it showcases the Penn Avenue area of West Reading. I also want to wish my colleagues a happy Father's Day. I know Commissioner Rivera mentioned it. I want to wish them a happy Father's Day and all the fathers out there. And I want to give a shout out to my dad, who'll be 93 in July, and wish him a very happy Father's Day. We'll be getting together, and I look forward to that. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Santoni. I'm going to start with congratulations to all the fathers for Father's Day, and also a special Father's Day to my dad, who's 91 years old. Just really look up to my dad in so many different ways. And also recognize Juneteenth. So many people seem to think that this is some new phenomena. This is the actual true ending to the Civil War. Because of communication issues during the Civil War, the April ending or signing of surrender at Appomattox, the news didn't reach Texas until June the 19th, and that is the actual date that the Civil War ended, and that's the reason for the celebration. I also want to thank Commissioner Rivera and Barbara Lopez for putting together really an amazing County Commissioners Association board retreat for last Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Absolutely great event. The tour, I think, is one of the best I've been on. And one of the takeaways from the tour, when we did the tour of East Penn Manufacturing, the East Penn CEO, Chris Pruitt, spoke and did a presentation. I learned a number of things. Locations they had around the world. One of their locations is in China. And I thought, China? And the reason they're in China, they have a small battery facility there. Chinese corporations want their batteries because they are more reliable than the Chinese batteries. And so they produce in that area. I also wasn't aware of their growth. Since I've been in office, they reached $1 billion in total sales. And I believe in the last 5 years, that's jumped to $3.7 billion in total sales. And so one of the questions asked, and I don't know which commissioner asked it, but one of the commissioners attending asked Chris Pruitt, what are your thoughts on lithium? And his first comment was, we're not sure lithium is the future, and as a result, we've not invested in it. This isn't coming from a small manufacturer here in Berks County. This is coming from one of the largest battery manufacturers in the world, saying they're not sure it's the future. The second thing he told us, he said, if I take a piece of lead and set it down here on the table in front of you, it will do absolutely nothing. Nothing. He said, if I take a piece of lithium and put that down on the table in front of you, it will heat up and it will want to burn. He said, you may not know it, but New York City, the city bars any type of, and I'm using the wrong term, but it's back office, large scale server networks based on lithium batteries because of the fire danger. The last thing he said is, if you think lithium batteries are green, you've got another thing coming. They are not recyclable. And he was asked, will they be? And he said, I think eventually they'll figure it out. But he explained something I knew about lead acid batteries, but I didn't know about lithium. Lead acid batteries are 100% recyclable. Every aspect, the lead, the plastic, all of it. And you can take a lead acid battery to any retailer that sells batteries and get paid to get that battery, have that battery back. If you ever bought a battery, they ask, are you going to give me the old battery? If you do, you get a discount. If you don't, you get that money when you bring it in. lithium, the lithium chemical mix is different for every manufacturer. And so it makes it very, you can't mix all these batteries together. And at this point in time, they're not recyclable. So that was very, very interesting. The last thing I want to touch on is World War II weekend. And I want to share some photos from World War II weekend. Hopefully this works. I tried it earlier and it did. Okay, it might. 1 second. Try again. There we go. So these are from the parade that occurred. Just quickly take you through these. Anne Marie and I rode in a Jeep, a World War II Jeep, owned by Matt in Fleetwood. This is a view of Penn Street. Absolutely picture perfect day, literally. It was phenomenal. And a bunch of us went over to the Ugly Oyster. The Ugly Oyster is a Irish, English style pub. And it was like a throwback. There were reenactors everywhere in the pub. And just it was an amazing image. This is Philip, Matt's son. Matthew owns the Jeep, and Philip was excited to come along on the ride. When we went back, we were able to observe a parachute jump out of a DC-3. Absolutely amazing to watch. I think it was 5 or so paratroopers jump for this event. And I'm skipping through because I want to save time. They did an air show. Again, fabulous watching World War II era planes fly across the Berks County sky. Reenactors, this was actually, I'm not sure if it was Greek Orthodox or not, but reenacting, prepping for a battle and what soldiers went through before going to the battle. Friday night and Saturday night, we had the dance at the Mid-Atlantic Air Museum, and there are fewer and fewer World War II vets. I got to meet these 3 vets. 2 of them were there both nights. If looking from left to right, Andy is from Norfolk, Virginia. He's 99 years old. He'll be 100 later this summer. He was in the Battle of the Bulge and the fight at the Remagen Bridge in Europe. Leo is a pretty amazing guy, 99 years old. He'll be 100 later this summer. A U.S. naval pilot. He's World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And he flew virtually every prop and jet available during his time in the service. He was a career man. And he's also from Norfolk, Virginia. And then Anthony is from New York. And Anthony is 98 years old. And he was in the U.S. Navy in the European theater. And so I introduced each of these gentlemen, and the crowd standing, because they stood, they gave them a standing ovation. This is Patton, and he was pretty doggone good. I think he might have been better than Patton himself. So he gave a speech both nights. I'm not playing the music right now. Mary and the Let's Dance band singing As Time Goes By. And then I want to show you 2 things at the end. The young people, and there are more and more every year involved. This is Andy. Andy can't walk, but Andy wanted to dance. And these 2 young ladies took him out on the dance floor, and look at his face when he's done. He is having a marvelous time. And then the same young lady Leo was able to get up. He didn't make it through one entire number at 99 years old, but that's what it's about. The last thing I'll share on this is we were driving into Reading. A lady yelled out from her porch, "Thank you for your service." Well, I was with some reenactors, and I turned to the driver and said, I don't think she's going to understand we're reenactors. But as I drove on, I thought, wait a minute. Yes, thank you for your service. And Friday night and Saturday night, I thanked our reenactors for their service, because the service that they are playing is making sure people never forget World War II. The people remember the greatest generation, what the men and women of World War II on the foreign front and the home front did to preserve freedom and liberty. If you know anything about history, and I'm reading through Masters of the Air, there are multiple times in World War II where very easily, in fact, statistically, the wind could have gone to the Axis powers. And where would we be today? But it didn't. And it didn't because of the greatest generation. And so these reenactors that come here every year, about 1,400 of them, they're a big part in helping people remember, and I appreciate what they do. That's all that I have. I know we've taken a lot of time, but this is good information that we shared. Any row officer comments?
I don't have anything, Commissioner.
I don't either, Commissioner. Thank you.
No public comment? Anything online? I didn't look. There's nothing in person. Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Second?
Meeting is adjourned.